Welcome back, Star Wars fans, to Coruscant Radio Underground. I'm Andrew, and as always, I'm here with Marisha.
Not always.
Not always, but
Usually.
more often than not.
As usually.
Usually. So we are going to talk about the finale of Kenobi, and weeks passed. So although I've watched it 3 times. How many times have you watched the finale?
I've watched it like 3.5 times.
Okay, you just had to one up me or half up me.
Half up you, yeah.
Half up me.
I started it and then I don't know. I got distracted. Somebody needed something.
And if you were planning on joining us live tonight, and we didn't show up till 15 minutes late, then I apologize. I decided to sample a hot pepper I've never tried before, and I paid the price.
Burned his face off. See,
I did.
Like Darth Vader.
Marisha was just like smearing yogurt on my face. It was ugly.
It helped.
It didn't.
I thought it was going to help. Next time I'll use cream cheese because it'd stick better.
Why don't we just keep some milk in the fridge?
Well, I bought milk for the kids' birthday party this weekend. Took it to my sister's house out of state for said birthday party, and then forgot to bring the ice cream freezer. So we had no ice cream and we still have no milk. So, go me.
All right. So we're going to talk we're not going to do we don't even usually do like a scene by scene breakdown, but I just kind of want to talk about general themes and what we liked, what we didn't. And kind of, since this was the finale, kind of how we feel now that we have the series as a whole, how we feel about it, where we would rank it.
What we liked, the other things we liked. I really liked it. And we've talked about this before. It wasn't perfect.
No, it
was micro continuity things though that irked me. It was like, how did he get there? Why, those sorts of things, but there were no like big in-universe continuity things that bothered me. So
no, I understand. Like, there's some people that are not happy with what this kind of does to the overall story, particularly going into the original trilogy.
Those are the same people who didn't like what the prequel did to the original trilogy.
Well, and that's actually kind of what I've been thinking about, is I don't think they change anything drastically. I think they change the way we perceive things in the original trilogy more than they actually change the story. I don't think there's
true from a certain point of view.
I don't think there's anything that just absolutely upsets and ruins the story of the original trilogy.
No, I don't think so. No more than the prequels did, period.
Right. And I feel like these changed our perceptions of the events of the original trilogy the same way the prequel trilogy did.
Mm-hmm. I feel like it continues very much in that vein that the prequels did. It's almost, in my mind, more a sequel to the prequels than it is a prequel to the originals.
I think it bridges the gap really well, particularly with Obi-Wan's story.
Yeah.
Could they have done an Obi-Wan story where he never encounters, has this? I know there's some people that really thought they were going to do stuff with Luke and not with Leia.
And that's kind of how they build it.
They definitely showed Luke in the trailer, mostly because I think they didn't want to give away young Leia that quickly.
Mm-hmm. And we knew we were going to be seeing Luke.
But it also made no sense for it to predominantly revolve around Obi-Wan and Luke. It just doesn't.
Right, because, he's that weird old hermit.
Right. He's aware of Ben, he doesn't know he's Obi-Wan. He knows Ben Kenobi, the old hermit that lives out beyond the Dune Sea.
Right.
So I don't know. I certainly understand why some people have issues with it.
Yeah.
And there are things that and I know we both have a couple of issues with it. I don't think we have
Mhm.
anything major,
No.
but could I have stood to have seen more Qui-Gon? Yeah.
Yes.
Does the way Qui-Gon finally shows up at the end make sense? Yes, because it's the completion of Obi-Wan's journey to get to
Mhm.
that point. That's what we get. That's what we just saw. We left off with an Obi-Wan who's just resigned himself to go live in the desert, but he actually has a decline over that 10 years of
Mhm.
where he just kind of loses hope. His only reason for existing is just waiting for the moment to come when he can train this child to go
Mhm.
kill to go destroy the empire.
And I mean,
Like, he's not even viewing this as a kid anymore, and I really
right.
think that's where the end of this
Mhm.
goes, and that's what I love about it is this moment where he kind of, decides that he needs to go off and do his own thing, and this is the moment where he's kind of going off, he's reconnected to the Force. We don't really know exactly what all he's gonna go get into over the next 9 or 10 years, depending
Mhm.
on what the actual canon version. They kind of waffle on the ages for Luke and Leia in the original
Yeah.
trilogy. Um, but he's at the beginning of a new journey when we
Right.
leave off, and this was the
Yep.
completion of him going from being a totally broken individual with really no hope or really sees no purpose left in himself.
Right.
He's just there to make sure this kid lives long enough to become a Jedi and
Fix all
and
the
and
problems he
fix
made.
and fix the mistake.
Yeah. And I think they did a really good job. Like that character that we saw there at the beginning, that Jedi, that kid was really tragic, and he's like
Yeah.
begging him. He's like, "Please, please, please help me." And he's lost himself so much. He's like, "Just no, go away." Not can't touch this. He's not even going to you risk exposure to help this, and he's always been a bit of a pragmatist. Like Obi-Wan, you know, is a lot more pragmatic than some others, a lot more pragmatic than Qui-Gon, for example.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's pretty cold. It's not that he's sorry to see him die, but like, did he not know that that's where that was going to go? Like, he's not a stupid person. Like, he knew
Right.
when he refused to help that kid that that's a possible that trajectory was possible.
Right. And that's where he's like, I think he's just resigned himself. Not only is he not really willing to help anyone, he's just resigned himself to this fate of just living in a cave,
Mhm.
um, cleaning some sort of desert fish
Whale.
monster during his days and just waiting for Luke to show signs of force abilities so that he can
Mhm.
train him. It's he's totally given up on his own life.
Mhm.
And so I do like this trajectory of we see Obi-Wan find more purpose by actually removing himself in actually removing himself from the future.
Mhm.
Trying to control the future and deciding. I mean, essentially, what he's doing. Yes, he walks away, says, it's more important that he's a kid. That he just is a kid right now.
Mhm.
That Owen and Baru are completely capable of raising him, and what he's really doing. Yes, he's leaving them in the hands of Owen and Baru, but he's leaving it in the hands of the Force.
Mhm.
There were a lot of parallels between this and Jedi Fallen Order.
Right.
Jedi Fallen Order. By the way, obviously at this point, we're spoiling this, and this game's been out for a while too. But I'm fixing to spoil the ending of it as well. The whole course of the game is leading towards finding a holocron that contains the names of Force sensitive children scattered throughout the galaxy.
Mhm.
They're going to find it, rebuild the Jedi Order.
Right.
Of course, you're constantly kind of hit with this. Anybody that's brought into this suddenly is in the same danger we are.
Right.
And at the end, after they fight the Inquisitor and escape Vader with the holocron, the decision is made that the fate of those children should be left to the Force, and the holocron is destroyed.
Right.
So I really feel like this is the same story, like in a lot of ways. Like, we have these two really important children, and we've now decided to leave them in the hands of their parents, and let what happens happen.
Well, and I mean, Obi-Wan, geez, he's been micromanaging fate for a long time. Basically, ever since Qui-Gon died, he's been trying to control the fate of the galaxy.
Yeah.
In the person.
Well, he was left with really an unfair charge by his master.
He really was. Like, Qui-Gon always gets talked up as the quintessential Jedi. And he is in a lot of ways, but he doesn't really leave. It's not fair. What he does to Obi-Wan in that last moment of his life is not fair. It reminds me, so when my grandpa was 12, his dad had a heart attack. And when the ambulance came to get him, his dad told him, he said, "Donnie, take care of your mama and the boys." And they took him to the hospital, and he died. And so my grandpa spent the next, as long
the
as
rest
the rest of his life, as long as his mom and those brothers, have been there. He spent the last 70 years of his life taking care of mom and the boys and their kids and their and in retrospect, I don't even know if what my great grandfather was saying was take care of them forever. It's just like,
it was probably take care of them till I get back.
Take care of them till I get back. And that's, but he internalized that, and he has been the take care of it person his whole life.
Right.
And so, like, having watched that play out for him and watched the responsibility, and it's turned him into a wonderful person. Like, my grandfather is an incredible person, but he took so much on himself, and he sacrificed so much. He sacrificed his time with his, like, he didn't ever see his kids when they were young. He sacrificed so much to take care of people.
I mean, ultimately, he sacrificed his time and his health to some degree.
Exactly. To fulfill the dying mandate. And those dying mandates are really compelling. And, you see that. And I think the way that they told this story was actually very true to life, and I've seen that kind of experience lived out in people that I love, is Obi-Wan's commitment to that dying mandate, which is not really a fair thing to do to a 20-year-old kid.
Right.
But here he is. And at the end, now he's failed. Right. And so now his only way forward is like, well, there's this next generation. So clearly this has got to be it.
Right.
And it's as somebody who's always been an Obi-Wan fan. And I mean, who isn't? Like, who saw the prequels and didn't think that Obi-Wan was just the best?
Yeah, no, I mean, not just because Ewan McGregor largely carries those films.
He really does.
You have a couple of great actors there.
Yeah.
You've got Ewan McGregor and you've got Ian McDiarmid, who are both terrific actors.
Yeah.
And everybody else was kind of subpar in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Which, I mean, I think turns out not to have just been the acting, because some of them have gone on to win Academy Awards.
No,
since.
I mean, I even think I think Hayden Christensen probably a better actor than he ever got to show.
Yeah.
Natalie Portman certainly turned out to be a far greater. Not that she was bad in the prequels, but I mean, it's not like it's some
no, it was a very
awe-inspiring performance.
It was a very specific kind of limiting role. in a lot of ways.
Mhm.
But you know, it's good to. I realize I started a sentence and never finished it. I got off on a tangent. As someone who's always loved Obi-Wan's character, it's really satisfying to see him get some peace.
Yeah. So overall, what do you think that this does? And Rob, I'm sorry if you're watching, I'm going to springboard off something that you said in the chat this evening. Is there anything about what happens in this story that makes Obi-Wan less likable?
Less likable. I mean, he's not the perfect Jedi. He he has his moment of just kind of
Well,
existing. Like he kind of gives up his role as the ideal personification. I mean, you know, he's this larger than life, always does the right thing, and he's Captain America. And then he just decides to just go AWOL. And I mean, in some ways, and I guess you could contend that that makes him a little less likable. I mean, he lets that kid die. It's not that it's the wrong decision.
yeah.
And I just found it that it was tragic. You know, it's kind of a tragic fall that he's taken. But
Right.
I didn't feel like he was less likable. I just felt like
Oh, I mean, honestly, I feel like it sort of humanizes Obi-Wan a
yeah.
little bit,
Now, did
and
the
like,
people around
yes,
him find him less likable? Undoubtedly.
right. Now we've talked about, like, do we need our heroes humanized?
Right.
Like, and in some cases, I think we do to relate to them. In some
Mhm.
cases, we don't. Like, I don't necessarily need Superman humanized, like, not overly, but like he's also an alien with like superpowers, and like to humanize Superman a little bit does make him
He
a
doesn't
little
have
more
to be all like
relatable.
broody.
Well, I think when you don't humanize heroes, you end up with some of these things like we've got going on currently with shows like The Boys, where we have humanized them, but like in a
Mm-mm. In
totally
the
different,
worst way.
in all the worst ways
The most
possible.
despicable things about humanity.
Right.
Like, let's take, I mean, yeah,
I mean, let's be honest. When we say a character is relatable, we're saying they've been humanized in a way that we can relate as humans.
right,
So I really think all characters. I think all characters have to be humanized to some extent, or they just don't work.
right.
Um, but I think that there are some things. I mean, I think Rob was specifically referring to the fact that uh, Obi-Wan walks away and lets Vader live.
Right.
Which again, like, yes, that's not. I don't know what the right answer is. I mean, if we were going to do this final duel, obviously Obi-Wan can't kill Vader.
Right.
Like, that's just a story problem. That's always the problem with doing stories in the gaps,
Mm-hmm.
is that there's
Especially with your biggest,
yeah, there are
antagonists.
predetermined outcomes. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you can't change them.
You can't
So,
kill Luke. You can't kill Obi-Wan. You can't kill Vader. You could have killed Reva. I'm just saying.
well, we're going to get there,
Coulda,
but
shoulda, woulda.
we're going to get there in a minute when we're done talking about Obi-Wan. But yeah, you're definitely right, like on that point. But like, what was the answer? Like,
Right.
or do you feel like they did a good enough job with establishing why Obi-Wan would turn and walk away? Like, because that's the answer. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
obviously he can't kill him,
Right.
but if you're just going to have it end by him walking away,
You have to have an in-universe
you have to have an
answer.
in-universe reason for why it's okay for Obi-Wan to just walk away.
Right. You know.
And I think that it's that Obi-Wan finally has a clear conscience for the
Mhm.
first time in 10 years.
Well,
And that killing Anakin at this point is not going to help that.
and I think in
It's
some,
also not the Jedi
it's not the Jedi way.
way
Right.
to just, the guy's defeated. He
Right.
doesn't have to strike him down.
Right. Well, and shoot. I was going somewhere, but
I'm sorry. Well, think about
it's
it,
okay.
because I have one more point about that. Obi-Wan shows mercy
Mhm.
in that moment, which is the Jedi way.
It's a little bit Gandalf, like, well, he should have killed him. Well, is it your job to dole out death and judgment?
But also based on the original trilogy, I think that he leaves that moment going, "You're Darth Vader now. You're not Anakin. Anakin is dead."
Right.
And ultimately, it's not on me to take you out. This has been what I've been preparing
Right.
your son for. This is the purpose of Luke's purpose, not mine
Right.
now.
Well, and he real, okay, so I remember where I was going. The
Did you forget again?
No, the guy, the resistance guy. No, not the rebel guy who's flying the freighter. Roken?
Roken.
Tells him, he's like, this isn't about us, is it? This is about, because Obi-Wan has
Because you want to.
You want to, because you have this personal thing. You feel like, I started this, I have to finish it. And that's really how he goes in with this. This is my fault. I made this mess, so I've got to fix it. And he realizes he doesn't.
Well, and that it was never him that caused it.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, would he have been justified in killing Vader? I think so.
I think so too.
Because he kills Maul. Like, once he realizes that Maul is not going to stop on this path, he kills him without any qualms at all.
It's also a little bit, Vader lets Reva walk away. And my argument for a lot of people were upset about that. Like, he wounds her, he maims her, and he lets her walk away because she's just a loose cannon at this point. It also, at that point, she's so broken, it would be a mercy to kill her, right? Vader doesn't do mercy.
Right.
I think that Vader wanted Obi-Wan to strike him down.
Yeah, I think he did.
That's not spelled out in the story, although he's yelling for Obi-Wan to come back. He's beaten, like he can't fight anymore, he's screaming for Obi-Wan to come back. And I really think that taunt at the end is him trying to get Obi-Wan to end it, because he's tortured. Like, we know that from the comics. We know that from all the other stuff. Like, he's in a constant state of both physical agony and he's being tormented by the Emperor.
Right.
And tormented over what he did.
Well, because he still thinks he killed
his wife.
Right. He thinks that till the end.
And his unborn children.
Right. Though, he is, because Obi-Wan pretty much makes the same decision that he makes on Mustafar. He walks away.
Yeah.
Like, he could die or he could live. And this may be one of those, I kind of get the feeling that he's decided a little more. I mean, if he's going to leave if he's going to leave Luke to the will of the Force, in some ways I feel like
he's leaving the whole situation. It's no longer his situation to fix.
This is kind of the classic, I'm not killing you. Like, if God wants you to live, then you can get a miracle.
Yeah.
And in some ways I kind of feel like that's a little bit what he's doing.
Right. But I think there's also this realization that there's this other story has to unfold. And that's what he's.
Well, he clearly, in the original trilogy, clearly believes that Luke is supposed to kill Vader. Like, and that's always what he's pushing him towards, is he's always pushing Luke towards a confrontation with Vader. So for some reason, I think that you have to make the argument that at some point during the fight, that he decides that that's the solution, that him solving this problem is not going to, for some reason, he doesn't think that this is going to be the solution.
Right.
And yeah,
Is that just headcanon? Yes. Am I
yes.
okay with it? Yes.
I mean, you have to headcanon a little bit because it's a little contrived.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think there's any denying the whole thing's a little contrived because you have to start here and you have to end here.
Yeah. Speaking
And
of headcanon, there's a thing I've seen floating around on Twitter that is now officially headcanon for me because it makes too much sense not to be.
okay.
Um, that now, because a lot of people complained that we did the same trope with Obi-Wan splitting half of the mask that we did with Ahsoka.
Uh-huh.
I think both those moments are great. I don't think one cheapens the other. And I think, like I said, this is just headcanon, but like, Ahsoka sees one half of the face and Obi-Wan sees the other. Neither one of them were able to, seeing Anakin inside of the suit, but neither of them were able to bring him fully back until Luke is the one that finally removes the mask completely.
Yeah, that's good.
So
I do like it.
I mean, it makes a lot of sense just thematically with what we've done now. That neither one of them were quite able to bring, to fully take Anakin out of the suit.
And I think
and that plays into the other things we've talked about with why it's important that Obi-Wan walks away and allows Luke to finish to fulfill his destiny, because Obi-Wan does believe that this is Luke's destiny.
And we've seen, we see Ahsoka try and convince him that he's really still Anakin Skywalker. We see Obi-Wan try and convince him he's still Anakin Skywalker. And we even see Padme in episode 3, try and tell him this isn't you. Of course, that whole scenario is what finally pushes him over the edge.
Right.
But, it makes, I feel like in a lot of ways, this, they talk about like, oh, this or that cheapens the things that came before it. But in some ways, I feel like seeing Vader like really be super messed up in this series, in some ways, even raises the stakes for Luke. Not the stakes, but the success that he has in breaking through to his father, because like you see that it's like this isn't the first time somebody was like, oh, don't you remember you're a good guy? Like this is kind of an ongoing. And honestly, in some ways I feel like it makes me a little more down with the whole Kylo Ren thing in the sequels, because a lot of people were like, well, like he made the decision and then he doubled down on the decision, so now he should be irredeemable. But like we've now seen Vader make the decision and double down, like really commit on a whole new level to this whole downward spiral several times. And so I feel like it makes the Kylo Ren turn a little more consistent. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. So next, I mean, we've talked about, is there anything else about Vader, like particularly? I mean, I think we talked, the big thing, of course, the fight. And we can talk about the fight before we move away from them.
So great.
The fight is really good. It's the best. I mean, let's be honest, it's the best lightsaber action we've had, like lightsaber on lightsaber action we've had since the prequels.
Yeah. It was really great.
Because the sequel trilogy does nothing for lightsaber duels. Nothing at all.
No.
Like, do you get a brief encounter between Kylo and Rey? Yes.
They made a really cool poster.
But it's just not that good.
Yeah, I mean, it had some really cool like shots, But as far as just the fight, it wasn't that great. Um, but yeah, the fight, and I actually kind of went down a rabbit hole to find. I was curious if Hayden Christensen was really the person in the suit
Mhm.
for those fights. And he may not have been for all of it, but he certainly was doing, like, I found several like production stills of him,
Yeah.
like
Well,
with the
they
cape, him and Ewan McGregor.
I'm sure it took a while for it, it took some time for it to all come back, but they both spent a lot of time
Yeah.
doing the fight choreography in the original. So
Mhm.
it's not that surprising that they wanted to relive that.
Yeah. I mean, it just makes me really, honestly, if nothing, I really enjoyed the series, but it makes me really happy, if nothing else, that Hayden Christensen is really happy about Star Wars again, because Star Wars was really terrible to him.
Yeah.
Like all of us Star Wars people were terrible to him. And it's really happy to see. I'm really happy to see
Well, I mean,
him.
I think he turns in maybe the best performance of his career during that fight.
God, yes, so
The
creepy.
range of emotions there
Hmm.
is very compelling, and just from the little bit of sadness in his voice, and then just that menacing smile.
Yeah. And we're watching it, and Iana goes, "Oh, that's creepy." Yeah,
So yeah, I thought Hayden Christensen turned in a masterful performance. I loved the fight choreography.
mhm.
Um, I even liked the using the stuff around them in the fight.
Oh, the
I do
rocks.
think that like somebody at Disney is like taking or at Lucasfilm is taking the lifting rocks thing like a little too literally or too
Oh,
far.
it was so cool though. He looked like some like primordial god with those rocks behind him.
He did. No, it was very cool. And I mean, this is not new. We've seen Vader countless times through different things using the environment around him in a fight,
There's
which,
all the stuff at Luke
right.
Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
All
So,
the stuff.
I thought it was a great fight.
Hmm.
So let's move on and talk about what I think is the biggest problem. Now, overall, what did you think about Reva's character, start to finish, her arc throughout the story, without the fact, without including the fact that she's alive at the end? Because I know that we both have issues with the fact that she lives.
Um, I thought she was an interesting character. She's not only my favorite thing in Star Wars ever. Um, she's a very Marvel villain kind of character. I feel like she's kind of got a lot of that going on. Um, if they were trying to be sneaky with the whole she was the kid and the, like, literally as soon as you saw that sequence in the beginning, you're like, okay, well, because you had seen the promotional material, you're like, well, clearly she's the woman,
Mhm.
she's the Inquisitor. Clearly, that little girl right there, with the dark skin, is the Inquisitor that we've all seen in the trailers.
Right.
Um, so I feel like they were trying to be a little bit more sneaky with that and be like, ooh, reveal. It kind of fell flat because everybody sort of saw that coming. But I felt like it was a very, I mean, it makes sense. The arc works.
I think her arc works. I think her character works. I think she fits fairly well with inquisitors we've seen in video
So the
games.
only thing that I didn't love, I mean, I thought her performance was great. Um, her aesthetic, like she's not wearing a mask, she's not wearing a helmet of any kind. Like we've always seen Inquisitors, except for the Grand Inquisitor, rocking some kind of like apparatus. So I feel like visually, um, it didn't quite fit with a lot of the other things we've seen from Inquisitors. Like it was sort of like, and here's a different one, which obviously is kind of a intentional. But so I didn't
I mean,
love.
we do have another inquisitor. I mean, I guess she's wearing kind of something over her head, but like one that we don't see much of in this series or has very little to do in this series. It's like not wearing a mask, unmasked or no weird helmet or anything
Yeah,
like
she's
that.
almost an alien, isn't she?
Yeah.
Okay, you're right. I was thinking more Rebels. Most of the ones we see in Rebels rock like big masks and stuff.
Or the giant version of the Padawan helmet.
Yeah, or that.
I'm assuming that means he's just not very good with the Force and he still has to wear his Padawan helmet. I think Vader did that because he just
He's a
sucked.
jerk. um,
That's also headcanon,
hey,
but
yeah,
I'm
there
going
we
with
go.
it.
That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. But no, I thought that now the one place I feel like her motivation breaks down just a little bit. I feel like it all works out really well up to the point like, why is she going to Tatooine to kill the kid? Like they don't give you sort of any, except for clearly he's important to Obi-Wan, but
I think
we
that's all that matters. I think she has lost her position, she's lost her authority, and now it's just about punishing Obi-Wan.
but she fixated on Obi-Wan so much, like at the beginning, and it kind of led you to believe that it was really kind of all a ruse, that she was really fixating on Vader. So it's like it felt a little bit abrupt when it was like, nope, she's really, she's really out to get Vader. And then it was like, and then but we're going to go to Tatooine and kill the kid, which is why I think a lot of people assumed that she knew that the child was Anakin's, which I don't think there's any indication of um in the conversations we see. But if she doesn't, then it does make the motivation, like if she's out to get Vader, how does killing this child, if she's play into that, and how does this killing this child um vindicate her to her dead companions? Because I failed them because I didn't kill him. How did you fail your dead
I
Jedi friends by not killing this random kid?
I think there's a problem in the dialogue there, and I don't know if something got clipped. There's several places where they've added in dialogue to try to clarify things.
Mm-hmm.
That they added things out, after the fact, character with his back turned to the screen or is off screen that you're hearing talking. And it's
Right.
like, well, that's added in because they
Yeah.
didn't show it talking. Um, I think that conversation is really confusing because I think I failed. I wasn't able to kill him is that she fails to kill Vader.
But Obi-Wan says, no, you honored them by showing mercy. She didn't show mercy to Vader.
But that's what I'm saying. I think there's some convoluted, I think the dialogue makes no sense there.
Yeah.
That's probably to me the biggest flaw in the whole episode is I've gone back and listened to that section several times
Mm-hmm.
and it doesn't work for me. There's something missing in the dialogue.
Yeah.
And I don't know what happened. I don't know if somebody cut it that way and then went, oh yeah, it makes sense. Makes perfect sense, but it doesn't. Because her motivations get a little muddied
Mm-hmm.
in that because I do understand that. And maybe it's that if she thought if she struck this kid down, she could win favor back with Vader or something. The problem is Vader at this point knows that it was a ruse all along, or he
Right.
already knew it all along
But now she
and
knows that
just
he knows.
used her
Right.
all that time.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's the biggest breakdown in
Mm-hmm.
the whole story for me
Yeah.
is that little bit of conversation, unless I'm just missing something, doesn't exactly work.
Honestly, the only way that dialogue makes sense is if she knows that this child is connected to Vader, which that's a problem.
See, and that's why I'm worried. I actually think that might be true that
Yeah.
she does know. Now, when you go back and listen to the message she hears on the recording,
Mm-hmm.
she doesn't hear, she hears there are children that need to be protected from him. Him
Mm-hmm.
being either Vader or the Emperor.
Right.
In this case, presumably Vader. He's the one tasked with hunting down Jedi and Force sensitive children.
Mm-hmm.
So presumably Vader. So we know we have two kids that are being hidden from Vader.
Mm-hmm.
But that's it.
Right.
And I don't know if something got cut there
Mm-hmm.
that wasn't supposed to, or if that was supposed meant to convey, because a lot of people took that to mean that she knew that was Vader's child.
Right.
But it does, she doesn't, like, the message doesn't explicitly say that.
Which honestly, I here's
At this point, you're better off accepting that she knows that, and then everything works better.
well, see, and that's honestly, I kind of feel like initially that information was probably she figured that out somehow, and that's why she goes after the kid. Um, and then at some point somebody was like, "Oh, I don't know if we want her to know that Luke is Vader's son. That could be a problem, a big picture problem for continuity."
Yeah.
And so they cut that out. But now you have messed up your continuity for your
Well, look, I mean,
small
that
story you're
that
telling.
fits with our overall complaint about this series,
Mhm.
right? That there are not universe wide continuity issues, but there are continuity issues within the show itself
Mhm.
with how someone gets to point A, from point A to point B, like Reva getting to the port before Leia. Clearly not having gone through the tunnels.
Mhm.
Or Obi-Wan magically coming around the corner of a building when he was just on the roof.
Or Reva parkouring for an hour across the rooftops. It's like,
Yeah.
why?
So overall, that's my complaint with this, that there's some sloppy, and I think it's sloppy editing.
And honestly, I feel like maybe like the show was made and somebody was like, "Oh no, that's a big picture continuity issue, take it out." And so they did.
And it
So
left,
now the big picture continuity works, but the minutia was lost.
and I don't think the small things ruin the show. And it's better that there be small continuity problems in the show um
Big
than
picture.
big picture things that mess
Like,
up the
why do we
original
have
trilogy.
someone running around knowing that Luke Skywalker is Anakin Skywalker's son? That's a problem.
Right. Yeah. So but as far as Reva, so now let's talk the thing that I think, I know, I don't love it. I think you hate it even more than I do, is the fact that she lives at
She
the
should
end
have
of this.
died.
I
And that would have fixed all of the issues. Big picture, little picture, continuity issues. She dies.
But doesn't it seem to you like she was supposed to die at the end after she had her moment of, where she kind of turns back from the dark? She's still wounded. Like, we clearly get this, this Reva that's running around the desert. She's still wounded from this lightsaber.
Mhm.
And I thought she was going to have this moment with Obi-Wan and then die in his arms.
Yeah.
Much like Maul. We were gonna mirror the Maul thing.
Mhm.
That she was gonna die in his arms. And have this moment of,
Doing the most Star Wars thing ever. Redeem them and kill them.
right. But Maul has a moment where it's like, is he the chosen one? The moment that the second sister has at the end of Jedi Fallen Order, right before Vader strikes her down in this moment of clarity, just says, "Avenge us." And I thought she was going to have that moment and die. And I really, like, no proof of this, but I really feel like that's what was supposed to happen. And then somebody went, like, we could use this character other places, and they cut that.
Yeah.
Because that scene kind of ends abruptly.
Yeah.
I think that Reva died in the original script, and they changed it to have her live. Now, if they've got a great use for the character, they could do something completely awesome with this character, and it's, and I will forgive it if they move forward and do something really good with the character.
But I will always contend she should have died.
But the story makes more sense if Reva dies.
That being said, the story makes more sense if Maul dies at the end of episode 1. Maul coming back as a Spider-Man, not reasonable. Just weird.
Yeah. But at the same time, they
turned out,
turned him into one of the most memorable characters in all
that's
Star
the thing.
Wars.
Like, it makes a good story, but it's kind of dumb in theory. Right. Okay, the Spider-Man thing, like spider legs, and he's like, it's weird. and it's really hokey. Like they make it work, but like the initial thing was like, no, 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 not a good thing. So that being said, they could turn around and be like, make Reva this super cool, awesome thing that I'm glad that they took on, but we'll always say, yeah, but come on, that's kind of a stretch.
Yeah. Now I do. I mean, if they're going to leave her, hopefully they do something fun with her. I mean, it's possible, and the one rumor I'm hearing right now is that she might be connected to a series that isn't actually announced yet. There's a lot of rumors swirling around about a Jedi Fallen Order series following this next game.
That would be fun.
Yeah.
I'd watch that.
Um,
Of course, they've announced like 6 series that they haven't, and a couple of movies. What is the deal
well,
at
hey,
Lucasfilm right
the
now?
series are all coming.
That's
It's
true,
the
the series are.
movies that are the problem.
It's really
Well,
it's
I mean,
becoming a
I'll be honest
problem.
with you. I think that I understand now why they decided to postpone Rogue One. After going a couple weekends ago and seeing Top Gun, I know why they didn't want to release something about fighter pilots against that.
Rogue Squadron.
What did I say? Rogue
Rogue
One?
One, yeah.
I'm sorry, Rogue Squadron. They didn't want to release that against Top Gun, Maverick.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't even want to release anywhere near that.
Yeah. You would have waited a couple of years.
That's an automatic comparison, and you're going to probably lose it because that movie's fantastic.
Yeah.
I know you hadn't seen it yet, but I mean, like I'm convinced that's why that movie got delayed. But the shows seem to be coming, but movies, I mean, Taika is working on his and he's supposed to spend most of the rest of this year apparently, once now that they are past they're coming up on their release for Thor, and so what he's talking about is spending the rest of the year back at home writing. That he doesn't know what he wants to do, but I'm seeing a lot of interviews with him where he's talking about wanting to do something new, to do new characters and new ideas, things that haven't been explored yet, and instead of doing, and I think that's saying
Old Republic,
maybe, but I mean, even if it's not that, like, I mean, I don't care if you jump into the future or if you just do something set in the middle that has nothing to do with characters we know, because there are lots of things. Even if you could go back and do something during the time of the rebellion, the war against the Empire, that has nothing to do with anyone we know.
I want to see somebody make that movie. You remember the game a few years ago with the twins, the commercial?
Oh yeah, for the Old Republic.
For the Old Republic game. Like I straight up want to see that movie.
Yeah, no, it'd be I'm surprised they haven't. But this is where a lot of people, including some people that work for Lucasfilm, say, well, those things are, too video gamey and the characters are too powerful. And, because even Whitwer has talked about Star Killer and said that doesn't really work. It's a video game. The character's way overpowered for in-universe. It just doesn't work with George's vision. And it's like, at this point, that argument sucks after the sequel trilogy.
Right.
And you made Rey and Kylo freaking gods. Yeah. And Luke. Yeah. Like all the talk about, well, we don't want Luke was basically a superhero in the expanded universe, and we don't want to do that. And then you have him like projecting his essence across the universe. It's like the argument no longer holds up because that's where y'all took it.
Right.
So I don't know, but overall I'm liking this. The last thing I want to talk about real quick before we wrap up, and then anything else you want to talk about. One of the things in Star Wars that we talk about, but I don't think we ever got to really see these characters highlighted the way we did in this series, even though they played relatively minor roles, is because we've sort of seen parents that are either, parents and fathers and mothers, and in Star Wars, we've seen, they've either been dead or they've turned evil. Or you get Han, who is, they turned Han into a deadbeat dad in the sequel trilogy, sort of. Sort of. I think the books tried to fix that a little bit. Um, and they didn't spell it out that well in the movie, but it certainly didn't look good, right?
Right.
Um,
Don't you know Kylo
and
returns
then
to the dark
Leia
side
and
because his
Leia too, because Leia's too busy running a resistance to be a mother.
right.
So they kind of made
Don't you know,
them.
love? He was justified in being that bad because his mommy and his daddy were nice enough to him.
I mean, I think that's ultimately the story, though, right? Like, I mean, when it comes down to it, that's the story of the sequel trilogy. Is that Kylo Ren didn't have the mommy and daddy he thought he deserved.
Well, I mean, that's where he goes with it, but I feel like a lot of fans have really bought into that. And
But
that's
that's
a
what I'm
problem.
saying. Like, that's the story that's presented to us, and a lot of people have bought that as factual, just like a lot of people, have bought the idea of kill the past. Even though kill the past is clearly the villain's mantra. I mean,
Mhm.
Vader even plays into that at the end of this show.
Mhm.
When Palpatine confronts him on, you're placing this vendetta you have over your loyalty to me.
Yeah.
You need to forget about this,
Mhm.
which was a good. I mean, that's you know. So now we know why Vader doesn't spend the next 10 years hunting Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Right.
So, but I really think that, I mean, we always kind of knew that Owen and Beru and um, you're not gonna help me out here.
Obi-Wan? I'm not sure where you're going. Owen and Beru, what? I'm sorry.
That the Lars and the Organas were
Oh, okay, yeah.
um were good parents to the kids they raised.
Right.
But I think we get a way deeper look into that of just
Mhm.
how good. I mean, now that we know that Obi-Wan's not even there. Like Obi-Wan walks away when Luke is 10 years old.
Mhm.
And I did like, just as a quick aside, that they chose 10 years
Mhm.
because it's the same age that Anakin
Anakin was.
was when Obi-Wan met him.
Yeah.
Um, but you've got these two farmers who raise a Jedi,
Mhm.
and canonically one of the greatest Jedi the galaxy's ever seen.
Mhm.
So I think that's really, really cool. And then on the other side, the Organas do the same thing. They raise really one of the leaders, the great leaders of the
Mhm.
rebellion to restore the Republic.
Yeah. In some ways, I feel like maybe Obi-Wan gets a little bit of clarity and realizes that maybe taking children away from their parents to be raised to be force sensing machines isn't the best system.
Yeah.
And so like, as he chooses to leave them there with these people who have they're just real salt of the earth kind of, you know, good old boy, farmers. They're not, there's nothing fancy. He's not going to learn anything about his place in the universe from them. He's not going to learn anything about how to be a great leader, how to be a great warrior, how to be a great anything except for just a decent person.
Yeah.
And I mean, basically, the Jedi Order has been the foster care system for force sensitive children for time immemorial.
Yeah.
And in some ways, I feel like he's realizing that maybe this isn't the best solution. Unfortunately, it seems like Luke kind of doesn't get that memo.
Yeah, I'm a little disappointed that Luke seems to be kind of readopting those ways.
Mhm.
And that's an episode that we still need to do. That's something
Mhm.
we've been talking about doing. Um, but it may be his failure with Grogu
Mhm.
that begins to change his mind on the way some of that ought to work.
Mhm.
But Bail Organa, like we always do, like yeah, he raised Leia, like, but like he's really involved within Leia's life,
Mhm.
despite his responsibilities.
Right.
And you're talking about a character that in this show, when he thinks Leia may be lost, says that I will go to Tatooine and help them raise Luke.
Mhm.
Like he's 100% committed to the cause here.
Yeah. He I don't think he cared that much about Anakin Skywalker, but he was really committed to Padme.
Yeah.
Like they had a real legit friend group going there.
Right.
Like, and you know, people always talk about Anakin and kind of the way he inspired people, but clearly Padme inspired a shocking amount of loyalty in people. Um because like Bail Organa loves Leia because she's his, but he's also willing to um risk a lot for Padme's other child, the one that isn't his responsibility, the one that's living on a desert planet halfway across the galaxy.
Yeah.
Um, and clearly Obi-Wan also, has a lot of loyalty to her. I mean, she's been dead 10 years,
Right.
at this point. And these people are still willing to take, really significant risks largely for her sake. Like you really get the feeling that the main reason that Obi-Wan agrees to go help Leia is not because of any of the guilt that Bail Organa lays on, but because she's Anakin and Padme's child.
Yeah, 100%. It's just that he's able to snap, Obi-Wan out of his current state of mind long enough to think that way.
Mm-hmm. Because he loved them, and there's something about the children of people you love. You don't have to be that intimately involved with their lives to be really invested with them. Like, I mean, I've probably met my mom's best friends 5 times in the entire course of my life. But like, if I ever need anything, I can absolutely pick up the phone and call her for absolutely anything, anytime, because she loves my mom.
Right.
And she's loved my mom for a really long time, through thick and thin and through good times and bad times. And so that kind of carries over to how she feels about me. And there's something special about that. And I think you really see that kind of in play here. And that's a really sweet thing that you see happening in this story.
Yeah. So just kind of other favorite moments. I love Obi-Wan's conversation with Leia at the end of the episode. And I love her, having this moment where she's happy to hear about her real mother and father, but she's okay not knowing more because she's fully embraced that she's an Organa.
The thing is, like, the whole real parents thing is kind of fraught, and she's got a lot of maturity, to like recognize it's like that maybe that's where she came from, but she recognizes who the real parents are,
Yeah.
the ones who are there.
Right. All right. Well, is there anything else that you wanted? Any other favorite moments in this episode that we didn't cover, or?
I don't think so. I would really be excited to see more of any of these characters. I think a like formation of the rebellion thing with, kind of a less grassroots and a more sort of political thing with the Organas, get to see.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like that would be great. In fact, I think that was one of the things that works in the rest of Star Wars that doesn't work in the sequel trilogy is they ignored the politics too much.
Mm-hmm.
And when I
Yeah.
say politics, I don't mean real world politics. I mean this fantasy world politics.
Right. Which is plenty
And
applicable
yes,
enough.
there are mirrors to the real world in Lucas's stuff, but
Absolutely.
they're reflections of not allegorical, not purely allegorical.
Right. So yeah, I'd love to see more of any of it. I'd love to see more of Obi-Wan. I am absolutely down for that Vader show that Hayden Christensen keeps shamelessly plugging. Like he is just
No, I mean that would be fantastic.
absolutely.
It's I don't know exactly what you do with that, but I mean Vader's up to a lot over the course of that time, and of course he's still. We know that Vader up through most of the time, this 19-20 year stretch of time is kind of a ghost. Like,
Mhm.
not only do people not know that it's Anakin Skywalker, like most people, hear rumors of this figure
Shadow, you know.
that they don't actually encounter him,
Mhm.
which is why the just absolute terror when he shows up in Rogue One
Mhm.
because
Yeah.
he's the boogeyman.
Yeah. And The Mandalorian has proven you can have an entire show led by a character whose face you never see.
Yeah.
And I think that was one of those things that people were like, but really, like you're going to hire a famous actor to come in and never see his face, really?
Yeah.
But it worked, and um, you know,
You want a Owen Lars series? You can learn all about the ins and outs of moisture farming.
I mean, I think I love Owen and Brew. I thought they were great in
They
this
are.
show, but I'm not sure that a whole show about moisture farming would just be real. I mean, although I guess you go straight up Western, and have
Fighting
a
off sand people
fighting
and
off sand people, and the whatever the Tatooine version of oil baron is, moisture barons coming in
moisture barons.
trying to take the family farm. We gotta win them with our quick draw and our quick wits or something. I don't know. I don't
So
wish
we're just going to do Bonanza, but
yes,
on Tatooine.
Bonanza put on Tatooine. Yes, I mean that kind of works.
Yeah, but no, I think I mean, obviously, I think with the ending of this going back, and I don't know what exactly you do if you come back into another Kenobi series.
Mhm.
Obviously, you can have things to do, but like I feel like the big story, the that's definitely the last contact between Obi-Wan and Vader. It would be stupid to try to come back and revisit that because you finally worked it back around to where their next conversation works.
And we talked about this. Did we talk about this in real life? Did we talk about it with the kids? I don't remember. But that they kind of fixed the whole Obi-Wan once thought as you do conversation, because that was always one of the complaints with the prequels was like, well, Obi-Wan once thought as you do. He thought I could be blah, blah, blah. He clearly didn't. He chopped off your arms and legs and left you to die in a volcano.
Yeah.
So I feel like they kind of went back and sort of fixed that. Like I said, they did really well with the big continuity things. And I feel like that was one of the things that they sort of went back and addressed.
Yeah.
A
For
potential
sure.
blot hole they went back and kind of plugged up.
So overall, where would you kind of rank this show in what we have? I mean, we have 2 seasons of The Mandalorian. We have Book of Boba Fett. We have this.
So Luke Skywalker showing up in the last episode of season 1 of The Mandalorian. What season 2?
Mm-hmm.
Whatever, the episode where he shows up. Oh yeah, right, because it was the Book of Boba Fett where we saw the whole Luke and Grogu thing, which was Anyway, that was really something. That may be like my favorite single episode of Star Wars TV, because I mean, how do you beat that? But on the whole, I think I probably enjoyed this show more, mostly because I really like Obi-Wan. I really have always liked Obi-Wan.
Yeah. I really like this show. I have my complaints. And I think overall, I would say that I still would have to put both seasons of The Mandalorian ahead of this show, even though I really like it. But I have very few complaints at all with anything in The Mandalorian.
The Mandalorian is much tighter.
It's much tighter and it's a little more bold. It's telling something new.
Yeah.
You know, this story, if you wanted to have Obi-Wan and Vader confront each other again, the story's kind of already like, it's kind of outlined for you. It has to take place in a certain way.
Right.
And I think they did a good job with finding that and feeling that out, other than the little continuity errors. But I don't think, like, again, I don't think this creates any big canon issues.
No.
I don't think this does anything to mess up anything that came before or anything that came after. There were things that could have been done better.
Yeah.
But it's definitely better than Book of Boba Fett.
I enjoy Book of Boba Fett, but
I like things about the Book of Boba Fett, but it's just the story is even less tight than this one. But that, that's a conversation for another day. But I mean, like, I literally would have watched like a whole season of just the stuff with the Tuscans.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't need to see all that through flashbacks. I actually would have kind of liked to have like that to not have felt so rushed, because it literally feels like it takes place over several days in the show, when in actuality it took place over years.
Right.
So I don't know. I just because of some of those things, I pushed that one to the bottom. But I'm very happy with the outcome of this show.
And I'm really enjoying Star Wars on Disney Plus. It's not hitting on all the cylinders every time, but on the whole, I'm really enjoying it.
I think in this one, I think that, one thing we haven't even talked about at all is the music. I think the music hits in some spots and just misses throughout the bulk of the show. It's just not, it's just, of course, nobody's John Williams. Like, the Obi-Wan theme is fine. Towards the end, when the composer started working older themes, John Williams themes, into the score, it works better. But overall, I think it's just really forgettable. And I know in some ways it's more Star Wars than Book of Boba Fett score or the Mandalorian score. But those title tracks from both of those they're excellent. Yeah. And they're catchy and memorable. And to me, that's what makes a good, that's a good Star Wars soundtrack, when these themes are memorable.
Right.
And I feel like, for the most part, this just doesn't do it for me. Now, granted, in the Mandalorian, like, and sometimes it doesn't work there either. It's just got such a strong theme that carries it. But I don't know. I felt like the music could have been better.
And I enjoyed it, but there were a lot of places I was like, Force theme. We need the Force theme.
I mean, I'll be honest. I really think, and I like the Rogue One soundtrack, and it's grown on me more and more since that movie came out. But I don't think anybody in any of the shows or in movies not scored by John Williams has done a better job than the guy that did stuff for Rebels and Clone Wars.
Yeah.
Which is what, it's Connor, right?
Yeah, I think so.
And I don't know. I feel like the animated shows, is it Kevin? I think it's Kevin Connor. If I'm getting the right name wrong, then just, send me an angry message. But he understands Star Wars music better than anybody else that's tried to do it.
That's reasonable.
Now, granted, Mandalorian, Boba Fett, they went for a totally different feel, which I think is probably the safer bet.
Yeah.
Like, if you're going to like kind of make it sound Star Warsy, but you're not going to play with any of John Williams' themes, then just do something new altogether.
That's reasonable.
But anyway, anything else?
I don't think so. I think we've about exhausted what I have to say about the topic.
All right. Well, until next time, where can people find you online?
You can find me on Instagram at princesses_and_Padawans, and I am P Padawans on Twitter.
All right. And you can find me running the Twitter account for this show at crew_podcast. That's CRU_podcast. You can drop us a line at CoruscantRadioUnderground@gmail.com, and you can find our podcast, Coruscant Radio Underground, and the Science Fictionary podcast anywhere that you listen to podcasts. And you can also find both of our shows as well as the rest of the Red 5 Podcast Network at Red 5 Network on Twitter. And until next time, may the Force be with you.
This podcast is part of the Red 5 Network. For more Red 5 Network podcasts, visit red5network.com.